Hello everyone. In this video today we will discuss and study about the anatomical and basic of skull. So if we took a look of skull from front and lateral views and from back views, then skull is divided into mainly four parts. Like this part is called frontal bone, this is called temporal bone, this is called parietal bone, and this is called occipital bone. So one by one we will go through it. So first of all is frontal bone. Frontal bone it's form of the region forehead and corculus in appearance, and it has mainly and majorly three parts. The ventricle parts or squamous parts, and we can see horizontal parts or orbital plates on each sides, and nasal parts. And if you talk about the anatomical position, then it has two anatomical position: orbital plate look downs and nasal spine, which is a projection from the nasal plates, projection down the forwards. And if you talk about the surfaces of frontal bone, then frontal bone has five surfaces: external surfaces or frontal surfaces, or internal surfaces or cerebral surfaces, and right and left lateral temporal surfaces, and right and left orbital surfaces. And if we talk about the surfaces deeply, then the video will go very long, so I will not discuss talk about all the points and all the landmarks in deeply. I only go through the basic of it. So first of all, if you talk about the parietal bone, then it's two in number, situated between the frontal bone in front and occipital bone behind, irregular quadrilateral in shape, and the two together form the greater part of the walls and sides of skull. And if you talk about the parts of parietal bone, then it has two surfaces: external surfaces externally and internal surfaces internally. And it has four borders: superior borders, sagittal borders, inferior borders, or we can say call it as squamous border, or anterior border we also call it a frontal borders, or posterior borders we can call it also occipital borders. And if you talk about the angle of this parietal bone, then it has four angle: the anterior superior frontal angle, and anterior inferior sphenoidal angle, posterior superior occipital angle, and this is called posterior inferior mastoid angle. Anterior border which is joined to frontal bone, and these sutures are called as coronal sutures. And these sutures which are joined to occipital bone, these sutures called are lumboidal sutures. And these sutures which divided two parietal bone is called as sagittal sutures. And we can see here superior temporal line, inferior temporal line, and parietal eminence. Now if you talk about the occipital bone, then it forms the region of occipital or back of the head, and it has a trapezoid in shape. It presents a concavity in front and convexity behind, and also it encloses a large oval opening, the foramen magnum, through which the cranial cavities communicate with the vertebral canals. And if you talk about its part, then it has three parts: squamous parts, basilar parts, and condylar parts. If you talk about squamous parts, then squamous expanded part above and behind foramen magnum. And basilar parts, if we talk about, then it is quadrilateral thick part in front of foramen magnum. And if you talk about condylar part, then condylar part lateral part lying horizontally on each other of foramen magnum, bearing the occipital condyles. First of all, if you talk about the squamous part, then it has two surfaces as like wall, external and internal, three angles, one superior and two lateral, and four borders, two lumboidal and two mastoid on each either side of the median plane. Okay, we can see this major landmark. We called it external occipital protuberance, and this is called as highest nuchal line, superior nuchal line, inferior nuchal line. Okay. If we talk about the attachment of the highest nuchal line, then attachment to Gallia epineuretica. And if you talk about the attachment of superior nuchal line, then it attachment is trapezius, and its lateral part to occipital belly of occipital frontalis, below which are insertion. And this line is called external occipital crest. We can say a ridge running in median plane from external occipital protuberance to foramen magnum give attachment to the ligamentum nuchae. If you look skull from internally, so we can see many major holes and foramen. So one by one we can name it, what the part is called, and which attachment is go, and which nerve is go through it. First of all, we can see these parts is called a frontal ear sinus, and these v-like shape is called cristagalia. Okay, cristagalia. And the here on foramen is present, which is called foramen cecum. Then these features like structure called is cerebriform plate of ethmoid. Okay, and this is called, as we know, very major and very important point, optic canal, through which the optic nerves are passes. These parts is called lesser wings of sphenoids, and if we call this big hole, then it is called foramen magnum. Okay, through which the major arteries and veins are passes. And beside the foramen magnum, these two foramen is called hypoglossal canal. Okay, and then if we took a look above it, then this bone is called hypoglossal fossa. Okay, and we can see these two canal or foramen is called what is called foramen ovale and foramen lacrum. This is called foramen ovale and this is called foramen lacrum. Foramen ovale, foramen lacrum. And we can see a small hole or foramen is present here. This is called foramen rotundum, and this for a small canal is called foramen lacerum. As like external occipital surface, we can see internal occipital surface here. This is called internal occipital protuberance